Ooh, welcome into the Week 13 wide receiver preview. We are going through every single game of the slate, Thanksgiving slate, and it's a fat one because there's no teams on buys. And we're going to talk about every fantasy relevant wide receiver and where I'd bucket them this week. All right, we've got must start category, strong start, dub flex, L flex, and the cone bucket. All right, we're going to jump right in because we've got a lot to talk about, a lot of players, a lot of games. Thanksgiving kicks things off immediately with Chicago at Detroit. 10-point favorites for Detroit. 48.5-point total in this one. Of course, the very first receiver that comes to mind when you think of these two teams is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He, of course, goes right into the must-start category. And as a gift to you for Thanksgiving, because I am thankful to y'all, we are giving you an absolutely free square. If Amon-Ra St. Brown has one single receiving yard, you win on Underdog Fantasy, all right? Underdog Fantasy, the GOATs. You know what else is the GOAT? If you use our code BDGE when you deposit for the very first time, that is how you get the free square. You're also going to get a fat deposit bonus on there for depositing your very first time. Thanksgiving, they're going to be giving out 1 million free squares throughout the day, throughout Black Friday, on Sunday, on Monday. They just want you on the platform. This is the best time to take advantage of it because they're giving you 0.5 squares all over the damn place. All right? Amon-Ra St. Brown is the first one. Jameson Williams, despite the matchup, Chicago's obviously been a very, 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 very good secondary, very tough pass defense. I feel great about JMO. I mean, they're in the dome. This is a team that's projected to score like 30 points here. I think despite the matchup, they will be fine through the air. They'll depend on the ground, but I do think Goff's going to have to throw the ball a little bit because Chicago's looked a little bit better through the air. So I'm gonna put JMO into the dub flex category. On the flip side of things, this one's kind of tough to read through. For the Detroit defense, we've got a lot of injured players. Terrion Arnold missed last game, but he's back to a full practice. Carlton Davis now is a DMP, though. So their secondary seems to be under the weather a little bit. They've already got some missing linebackers. They've obviously got some problems on the defensive line with Aiden Hutchinson out. So, like, their defense, while they've been really, really solid, they're kind of holding it together via some rubber bands and strings at the moment. That being said, like, Chicago's not a great offense by any means, despite the OC switch. Caleb's running the ball more. DJ Moore is seeing a lot of around the line of scrimmage type of manufactured touches, which is good. It gives them a nice floor. I'd throw, based on the matchup, based on them being 10-point underdogs, they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. Detroit has allowed the fourth most fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position, not because they're a bad team or a bad defense or a bad secondary, just because teams have to throw the ball a lot to catch up. I'm going to throw DJ Moore into the dub flex category. I'm going to throw Keenan Allen into the dub flex category. I'm going to throw Rome into the L flex category. I know he's gotten more targets and he's talented, but like the dude very rarely puts it together. He's had, 2 good games basically all year, and you can never really predict when they are coming. So that's where I kind of shut out that receiving group. All right, move down to the Giants and Dallas, second Thanksgiving game of the slate. We've got Dallas 3.5-point favorites, 37-point total. So not looking like a shootout by any means. For Dallas, I think you just continue to start CeeDee Lamb. He's seeing like 10 targets a game, so he's going to go right into the must-start category. No one else I'm starting in that offense. The New York Giants, Malik Neighbors, squeaky wheel narrative, not getting involved early. I do think they're going to make a very, very concerted effort for Malik Neighbors to get the ball early, so Malik's going to be a strong start for me. I think if Tommy DeVito plays, he's probably more of a dub flex for me. If Drew Lock plays, because Tommy DeVito's dealing with a forearm injury, I actually like Malik Neighbors a lot more. He moves into the strong start category for me. Wan'Dale Robinson, been incredibly disappointing, obviously. Still giving you like a nice little PPR floor. I do think in this matchup, though, if Drew Lock starts, I might move him into the dub flex category. If it's DeVito, I'm going to keep him in the L flex category. Miami and Green Bay. Now, a lot of moving parts here as well. We've got the weather, supposed to be very, very cold, affects Tua a little bit. I'm actually not going to buy into that narrative too much. The point total is still 47 points. Green Bay, 3.5-point favorites here. Jordan Love didn't really have to throw the ball much last game. They dominated San Fran. Josh Jacobs went fucking bonkers. I do think this might be a game where they have to throw the ball a little bit more, and it could be, some shootout potential. Now, Romeo Doubs is going to miss this game with a concussion, which makes it interesting for all the other receivers. Jaden Reed, despite the lack of production over, the last month, 2 months almost, he's still going to be a strong start for me. Dontavian Wicks actually is interesting for me. Same thing with Christian Watson. I actually think they're both dub flexes. Dontavian Wicks, in games where either Dobbs or Christian Watson have missed this year, he has seen target shares between 25 and 30%. So he's very, very involved. All it takes is one of those deep shots to land. Same with Christian Watson, who can't catch the fucking ball, but the opportunities are going to be there. All right. It's just a tough Miami defense, but overall, I think we'll probably see a few more passing attempts than expected, right? Jacobs is coming off a million carry game, 4 days rest, 3 days rest, whatever. It's possible that they lean a little bit more pass heavy here. So I actually like the Green Bay wide receivers anytime we get a condensed group, which is what we're getting with Romeo Doubs out of the way. For Miami, you got Jalen Waddle coming off of his best game of the season. That being said, still don't really trust him. I still think he's a dub flex, though, because you have Jair Alexander, who has been a DNP and very likely out for this Thanksgiving game, which obviously makes life a lot easier on Tyreek Hill, on Jalen Waddle when you don't have Jair Alexander there. That being said, teams are still running the single most too high sets against these teams to disallow any deep shots. So I'd imagine in this cold weather game, we're going to see Miami try to establish the run here. Jonnu Smith has obviously been a monster. So Jalen Waddle is a dub flex for me. Tyreek Hill is not a must start, but he's a strong start for me right now, even though there's not a league anywhere that exists where Tyreek Hill realistically isn't a must start for you. Moving down to the Friday, Black Friday game, we've got the Vegas Raiders on the road, 12-point dogs to Kansas City, 42.5-point total. For Kansas City, the receiver group is really, really hard to stifle through. I do think Kansas City is going to have a lot of success on the ground through the air. Patrick Mahomes is going to have a good game. So I think you could do worse than Worthy, who's running the most routes at the wide receiver position, as well as DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm going to put Worthy and Hopkins because of the matchup as dub flexes. Nobody else I'm starting in that receiver room. For Vegas, the only guy you'd even be thinking about is Jacoby Myers. But because it's going to be Aiden O'Connell or because it's going to be Desmond Ridder, and this is a tough matchup against Kansas City, Jacoby Myers, despite how good he's been recently, dude, I do not trust those two quarterbacks. So Myers is actually going to be an L flex for me. I see his ceiling as like 8 points maybe. So I'm off Myers this week. Moving on to the Chargers and the Falcons. We have the Falcons at home as 1.5-point underdogs. We are still waiting on word for Darnell Mooney. They're coming off the bye. He had a little bit of a hamstring tweak. Chargers are obviously a pretty tough defense, but we did see them. They've succeeded against subpar teams and subpar quarterbacks. So I think their defense is probably a little bit overstated, and we saw them struggle against Baltimore, obviously, this previous week. So I don't think their defense is like elite right now, but they're still a very good defense, and Atlanta needs to figure it out a little bit more. I did hear some rumblings over the bye week that they plan to install a lot more play action in their pass offense, which is Kirk's always been really good with that. Obviously, that just leads to more success typically throughout passing. So, Drake London's obviously a must start. I think if Darnell Mooney is healthy, he becomes a strong start. Ray McLeod would be an L flex in that category, in that situation. If Darnell Mooney misses time, I kind of still think Ray probably falls into the L flex category, but he pushes his way up near the dub flex if you really, really need somebody and you are desperate. For the Chargers, we have Ladd McConkey, where it's really easy to get excited about him. Problem is he doesn't see like consistent high target totals. So he'll make like great plays every week, and he's one of the best players on the field for them. That being said, I think he's a dub flex more than he is like a super strong start. We're broken in every aspect of the game. The Atlanta Falcons defense, as you can see, our EPA per pass is bottom 4 in the NFL. Fantasy points per game allowed to the wide receiver, number 5 overall in the NFL. So like it's a cupcake matchup for the Chargers offense. I do wonder like what their offense looks like now without J.K. Dobbins. Do they go pass heavy? If that's the case, then Ladd probably moves up to a strong start. I think Quentin Johnson, despite him having the absolute donut fucking flop game of his lifetime last week, I still think you could put him into the dub flex category because more often than not, he has produced for you. He's still getting the opportunities. He's still running a lot of routes. He's still like one pass away from having a big play and a big game for you. So you could do worse, I think, than Quentin Johnston. Still, Josh Palmer would be a cone for me. Indy and New England. We have Indy on the road in Foxborough, 2.5-point favorites, 42.5-point total. So with this game, we've got Josh Downs out. We've got A. Rich under center, of course. I think it becomes really interesting for A.D. Mitchell and Alec Pierce. On the defensive side of things for the Patriots, they're obviously not good. They let up a lot of points, let up a lot of yards. It's just not their strong suit. They don't really have a strong suit right now. But if Christian Gonzalez is going to shadow anyone, it'll likely be Michael Pittman. In the 2 games that Josh Downs did not play in the beginning of the year, A.D. Mitchell ran his season high in slot snaps in both of those games. So I'd imagine we're going to see A.D. Mitchell up in the 75 to 85% snap rate, which is really good. He's a great separator, playing a lot of snaps from the slot here. So I actually think Alec Pierce I actually think AD Mitchell are both very, very much flex worthy. I think this is a good matchup where I like the total of this game going over. And Michael Pittman coming off a good game. I think they're all like dub flexes. I think they're on the borderline of L flex to dub flex, but I think they're all going to sit into the dub flex category for me. It's similar to the Packers receiver room where when they're all healthy, very hard to decipher who's going to get targets on a week-to-week basis. When one of them is down, the target share becomes extremely condensed, and you know where the targets are going to go. And AD Mitchell, Alec Pierce, they won't get as much volume as Michael Pittman, but their targets seem to be more valuable. They seem to get more end zone targets. They seem to get more, downfield targets there. So I think dub flex for those three, if I had to rank them, it would be Pittman, AD Mitchell, Alec Pierce in that order. For New England, there's really nobody I trust in that receiving room outside of Hunter Henry. I think everybody you are trying to put into your lineup, like I think even Demario Douglas is probably an L flex. Bourne, definitely not. Polk, definitely not. Keishon Butte, definitely not. They're all cones outside of Pop Douglas. Houston, Jacksonville. We've got Houston, 5-point favorites on the road in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is the stone worst pass defense in the NFL. If Trevor Lawrence is back, which we are expecting him to be, at least the way it's trending right now, we should probably expect a little bit more scoring in this game. And I think that's better for Houston's passing offense rather than, getting out to a 3-touchdown lead and not having to throw it all in the second half. So Nico Collins, obviously a must start. Tank Dell has been extremely fucking disappointing. I still think just based on purely the matchup, I'm going to throw him into the dub flex category, even though he has not been producing like it. I know, but still dub flex for Tank Dell. For Jacksonville, BTJ, as long as Trevor Lawrence is under center, there's no Christian Kirk, there's no Gabriel Davis. He's a really strong start for me. He's been very, very good when Trevor Lawrence is under center. The rest of the receiving group, Parker Washington, whoever, they're all L flexes, maybe cones. Next matchup, we got Seattle, 2-point favorites on the road in New York, 41.5-point total. The Jets still the single fewest fantasy points per game allowed to the wide receiver position. This is probably a game where Seattle tries to run the ball and tries to give Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet 30 carries. That being said, JSN is, he's earned the strong start category, the strong start bucket every single week. DK Metcalf has not had his explosion game, but I still think you obviously have to put him into the strong start category. Lockett would be an L flex for me. There's always that chance that Sauce Gardner shadows DK Metcalf for the entire game, and we've seen Sauce is a 2-time All-Pro player. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Just because the rest of the defense stinks does not mean Sauce stinks. So there's a game where he plays up to his potential, he shadows DK, and that becomes a problem. I still think they're both strong starts, and I would still probably start DK over JSN if I had to make the decision, but I probably want both of them in my lineups where I do not want Tyler Lockett. On the flip side, New York, I think there's a world where Aaron Rodgers is just taking all the off-the-field nonsense and turn that into motivation because he's a weird dude. I could see him having a good game. I think Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, based on how they're producing, I think Garrett's a strong start. I think Devontae Adams, because he's getting so much volume, you might not realize it, but he's still getting between 8 and 12 targets per game. He's a dub flex for me. So we got Garrett Wilson as a strong start. We got Devontae Adams as a dub flex, and we're just going to move on from there. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. We got Pittsburgh on the road, 3-point underdogs, 48.5-point total. There's nothing here that I feel like needs to be discussed. It's pretty much George Pickens, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are all must starts. Outside of that, I don't think I have a single player that I would even consider an L flex. I think the rest of them are pretty much cones. That's a lot of firepower from a lot of wide receivers, but because there are not a lot of ancillary receivers, I mentioned in the running back version of this video, which is out on our channel right now if you want to go listen to that I like the under of this game. I know they have some good wide receivers going right now, but I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be able to really be explosive through the air the way that Cincinnati is because they don't have enough firepower there. So I'm excited to see this game. It's one of the more intriguing games, I think, of the slate. But, you're putting Pickens in, obviously. It's a great matchup against Cincinnati's secondary. Pickens has been a beast lately. T and Jamar Chase are must-starts, and everybody else stinks. Tennessee, Washington. Tennessee, 5.5-point dogs on the road in Washington, 44.5-point total. Tennessee's pass defense has been not good the last month of the season since L'Jarius Sneed has gone on the IR. They are really good against the run, not great against the pass. For Washington, obviously, Terry McLaurin needs to be in your lineup. He had the late touchdown last week that saved his game, but he's been a top 5 fantasy wide receiver pretty much all season outside of the beginning. So for Terry, he's a must start. Noah Brown, I think, is a fine flex. I would almost throw him into the dub flex category. He has out-targeted Terry McLaurin over the last month of the season, so Noah Brown's a dub flex. No one else in Washington. For Tennessee, you have Calvin Ridley. You have Nick Westbrook-Ikini. It's like, when does NWI's luck run out? I don't know. I will say, like, Will Levis has been a gunslinger, and he's willing to take shots, obviously. They lose so many pass attempts from him taking sacks, though. That's like the one issue I have with this Tennessee offense. I mean, there's many issues I have with the Tennessee offense, but he keeps taking between like 5 and 9 sacks per game. And what that does is that now makes you, instead of a 36 pass attempt guy, you're now a 28 pass attempt guy, right? And that hurts a lot from a statistical standpoint. So that makes me a little bit nervous. It's not like Washington's, pass rush is anything special or we're riding home against. Calvin Ridley, like, the amount of volume he's getting, he's pretty much in the must-start category because it's a good matchup. For Nick Westbrook-Ikini, I'll throw him some respect. Even in a 0-bye week matchup, I'm going to throw him into the dub flex category. He just continues to get it done one week after another, after another, after another. The 0 game is coming. The flop game is absolutely coming. I'm just going to stop trying to predict it. Arizona, Minnesota. Arizona on the road, 3.5-point underdogs, 45-point total. For Minnesota, you have Justin Jefferson as a must-start. For Jordan Addison, yes, he's coming off of the biggest game of his season, possibly his career. I still think he's more in the dub flex category. He's given us 0 consistency all year. This was a game that Justin Jefferson obviously got shut down. Do not expect that happening 2 games in a row. Addison probably drops down to like a 5-target guy again. It is a great matchup. Obviously, the Arizona secondary is not great, so I like Darnold. I like the way this game sets up, but Hawkinson's also getting 9-10 targets a game. Jefferson, Hawkinson, Addison should be in your lineup, but he's more of a flex play for me. I don't think he's like a strong starter or must start, even post the great game he had last week. For Arizona, they're so all over the place that I'm going to put Marv into the dub flex category. Minnesota's a tricky defense to really pass against. Like, I can see Kyler really needing to escape the pocket often, and that could result in big plays. So I feel good about Marv in my lineup, despite how streaky this offense has been. I think there's a world where Kyler escapes and throws it downfield to Marv a couple times this game that could result in 25, 30, 40-yard attempts. So I feel good about Marv as a dub flex here. Michael Wilson would be an L flex because very little consistency there as well. For Tampa Bay and Carolina, we got Tampa Bay on the road, 6-point favorites, 46.5-point total. Mike Evans is, of course, a must start. The only other pieces of this offense you want are the backfield. For Carolina, a little bit tricky. We don't have word on Jalen Coker yet. We do have Adam Thielen coming back to a 70% snap share. I think that would continue to rise. They have a great matchup with Bryce Young playing pretty well. Tampa Bay has allowed the 6th most fantasy points to the wide receiver position on the year. They're also just not a good secondary and passing defense overall. They let up a lot of points. That's, when you're a 46.5-point total game with Bryce Young on the other side, that should tell you something about the defense. As it relates to the Carolina receivers, the way I would rank them, despite David Moore coming off the big week, I think I would put Adam Thielen as a dub flex, and I think I would put Leggett as the number 2, David Moore as the 3, both of them in the L flex category, though. Thielen's like the only one I would be okay with in my lineup this week. If Coker's in there, then you probably swap Coker in for David Moore, and I still keep him in the L flex category. Thielen's the only one that I feel is going to have consistency going forward. Leggett's always a threat to make a big play, but it seems more often than not he actually just doesn't make that big fucking play. Moving down to the Rams and the Saints. This is kind of interesting. Also, shout out to Pliable. I don't know if y'all ever eat at Pliable. One, their acai bowls are phenomenal. Their iced coffee, their cold brew, low-key, damn near a must-start. I usually get coffee at like some mom and pop shop around New York. Like Starbucks is fine, whatever, but Pliable, I didn't even know they had cold brew until about a month ago. Shit is fucking slept on. Phenomenal. Rams, 49-point total, 2.5-point favorites. Great matchups all around for the Saints and the Rams. Kupp, obviously a must start. Puka, obviously a must start. I think Demarcus Robinson can be looked at as a dub flex, to be honest with you, if you really, really need somebody. New Orleans has no cornerbacks ready. They have nothing in their secondary right now. For the Saints, for the passing offense, you have MVS, who's racked up like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns over the last 2 games prior to the bye. There's no receiver you want to play outside of MVS. I'll throw MVS into the dub flex category. He's going to continue to get involved, and he's going to continue to get deep shots. Whether those convert, I don't know, but the opportunity will be there. He's the type of player you don't hate having in your flex. Like, if you start 3 wide receivers, MVS is your 4th, it's like, sure, you're not really depending on him to win you the game, but when he does connect on one of those deep passes where he'll probably have 2-3 attempts per game where he gets the opportunity to do so, that almost puts you over the edge to definitely win your week. So MVS, I'd say dub flex here. Philly and Baltimore. This is a good one here. We got Baltimore -3 at home, 52-point total. Philly's pass defense has been incredible. This is a game, the total is so high, 52 points. And I get it. Like, both of these offenses are just powerhouses right now. But I have to imagine Derrick Henry and Saquon are just going to chew up so much clock here. Do they hit on the big plays? Philly, doesn't attempt enough big plays per game that it makes me feel like they're going to hit this. If Devontae Smith is out, I'm almost definitely taking the under in this game on 52. I might even buy the hook at 52.5 and take the under on it and parlay it with something else. I know Baltimore secondary has been atrocious, but if all they have to do is cover A.J. Brown this week, he'll get his, obviously, but that's really the only thing they're going to allow through the air here. So A.J. Brown must start every single week, of course. If Devontae Smith is back, I still think he's a strong start because his secondary is so weak. And if they're going to put up 30 points each, of course, they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit. So Devontae, strong start. A.J. Brown must start. No one else in that wide receiver group we want, of course. On the flip side, Baltimore, a little bit tricky. Just given how much production gets spread around this offense, right? It's like a Zay Flowers game, then a Bateman game, then an Andrews game, then a Henry game, then just a Lamar game. There's so much firepower that it's hard to find consistency. I still don't see a world where Zay Flowers is not at worst a strong start, right? The last 4 games, 8 targets, 666, not great, but he still scored 3 times in the last 4 games. And then prior to that, he was putting up games of 7 and 115, 9 and 132, 7 111. I'm super in on Zay Flowers, regardless of the matchup, to be honest with you. So he's a strong start for me. Bateman, anything outside of that, I don't think Bateman's good enough to win against really strong secondary play. He'll have big games, obviously, like we saw last week, but I'll put him into the L flex category. And then those of you that are still asking about Deontay Johnson, you probably shouldn't be playing fantasy football. Moving down the list, we got San Fran at Buffalo. Buffalo 7-point favorites, 44.5-point total. Another game with a lot of moving parts. We do not have an update for Brock Purdy. I am filming this at 11 a.m. on Wednesday. We have to do this obviously as early as we can because we got the Turkey Day game starting tomorrow. So we'll start with San Fran. If you look at San Fran's offense right now, if Brandon Allen is under center, we can't trust anybody outside of George Kittle. Debo falls to an L flex play. Ricky Pearsall is unstartable. Juwan Jennings, he'll probably lead the wide receiver group in targets, but even at that, there's very little ceiling here. So I actually would probably throw him into the L flex category if Brandon Allen is playing, and I would start him over Debo Samuel. If Brock Purdy plays, you put Juwan Jennings into the strong start category. I think you put Debo into the dub flex category with still, he just hasn't been good, man. He's really, really bordering on a player that you could think about sitting, but he's Debo, so I'm probably not going to do it. I'm going to throw him into the dub flex category. Ricky Pearsall would be an L flex for me. Then we look at Buffalo. Buffalo should have Amari Cooper. Dalton Kincaid, kind of up in the air right now. We don't have enough practice reports out. We don't have any practice reports actually as of this recording right now. So we've got Khalil Shakir, we've got Amari Cooper, we've got maybe Keon Coleman, we've got maybe Dalton Kincaid. If they're all playing, the way I would rank them would be Shakir, dub flex, Amari Cooper, dub flex, but underneath Shakir. Keon Coleman, L flex. Got hot right before he got hurt. But it was 2 games. One was like a broken big play, so I don't want to get crazy here. Second half rookie breakout, cool, but you start to miss multiple weeks at a time. Usually your first game back, you're limited on snaps, you're limited on production, all that kind of stuff. So if everyone's back at full strength, yeah, I'll go Shakir, I'll go Amari Cooper into the dub flex category. Honestly, don't know that they move that far up if Coleman and Kincaid are ruled out. They do a little bit, but probably more so to the top tier of the dub flex category. You can make the argument that Shakir is a strong start. I think Cooper still remains in the dub flex because we haven't seen him have consistent success in this Buffalo offense since he's come over there. So at best, it's Shakir as a strong start, Cooper as a dub flex. More realistically, probably both of them as dub flexes with Keon as an L flex. Cleveland and Denver, Monday Night Football. Cleveland on the road in Denver, 5.5-point underdogs, 42-point total. Denver's pass defense really good. Cleveland's pass defense really bad. So when we look at Cleveland, we have Cedric Tillman dealing with concussion. Yeah, we've got no update on Tillman. He won't clear the protocol if he does until another few days or whatnot. So let's say Tillman's out. Judy's been a target magnet. So actually, I put Judy into the dub flex category. It's hard to get overly high on any of these dudes just because the matchup is so tough against this Denver secondary. And I kind of think this game's going to be a little bit of a slop fest, to be honest. Like, the total is 42, and even that I don't feel is like a strong bet to go. Got Jerry Jeudy as a dub flex. You have Elijah Moore. I would put him into the L flex category because the volume is the only thing keeping him alive, and if he doesn't have high efficiency, he's not really someone that you want in your lineup. But if Tillman's out, I think you can make the case that he moves into the dub flex category. If Tillman ends up clearing protocol and playing, I'd throw him and Jeudy into the dub flex category. I'd throw Moore into the L flex category. For Denver, you have Cortland Sutton, obviously just a fucking must start. At this point, we're getting too cute if we think anything outside of that. Devon Vele is the only other receiver we'd be looking at. The consistency makes me nervous, but I do think we're going to see him running basically every route. So I'm deciding between L flex and dub flex. My brain says L flex, my heart says dub flex. So you know what? Devon Vele, deal or no deal, absolute fucking legend. Let's throw him into the dub flex category. And I feel okay about it because Cleveland's passing defense has kind of been atrocious. Bo Nix has looked really good. Him and Vele have real chemistry here. Vele is, I actually just learned today, he's a rookie, day 3 rookie, 26 years old. The reason he came in so late is because he went on a Mormon trip or mission or whatever and missed either college or missed something, and obviously started his life a little bit later because of that. I don't know if I respect that or disrespect that, to be honest with you, but whatever it is, he's playing well. Let's ride the hot hand. Dub flex, how you doing? That is the wide receiver preview for week 13. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you let me know by hitting the button that looks like this down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you missed the running back version of this video, that is already up on the channel, so go check that out. And most importantly, hit Underdog Fantasy, please. They're giving you free squares the entire weekend. You could hit like 10 bets in a row. You could literally hit 10 bets in a row because they are giving it to you. Use code BDGE when you deposit for the first time. $10 or more will get you a deposit bonus plus all of them free squares. All right? I love you. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Give your mother a big fat smoochie for me.